All right, well, I'm back here with Steve Magua and Tim Martin. We just went on some Montana wild trip, didn't we? Yes, we did. So Tim took us around the Tobacco Root Mountains, and I was able to see Nevada City. Is it Nevada or Nevada? How do you say it? Nevada City, and then Virginia City, which has an interesting history. I learned today. Actually, dates all the way back to the Civil War. It was a place where the Southern culture, I guess, would come and talk. And then we went into Ennis and had a really great lunch and some tacos. And then we went to Ennis Lake and then down by the Madison River and we saw the dam. And so the idea here when we started meeting was that we were going to look for something to do next summer in 2025, possibly here in Montana. And I just have to tell you, it needs to happen. This is a beautiful place. I felt like I stepped off the airplane into a movie set. It's felt that way. Even like I wake up and I step out of this little place called the Chicken Coop, and it's like I'm on the set of Yellowstone.
There you go. There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's just really something. And then, we went up to, what was it? Was it
Mill Creek.
Mill Creek yesterday up in the mountains, and
Copper K. Right.
we also visited Copper Cay. Yep. There's so many places and so much to do. Now, I will tell you this. Tim said, "Hey man, you're going to be staying over at my neighbor's," and his neighbor is literally 2 miles away. So it's a trip, everything is really wide open and spread out, but it's beautiful. And I think that it would be great to be able to have a conference of some kind where we can actually enjoy the scenery, enjoy God's creation, but then be able to talk about our faith too. So it's kind of like a vacation getaway / conference.
Right.
You
I have a proposition. There's these guys that they have these annual conferences. They're called Ask the Pastor. We could. I can convince them that we need to come to Montana because I've been having so much fun at the cabin, and I agree with you, Rick. This has to be the 2025.
You think we could do something like that?
Oh, absolutely, at the burn.
Oh, at the big Copper Cay barn.
Yes.
Yeah, at the barn. That place was awesome.
1800s construction, original woodwork.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Big open spaces by it with a vista of the Tobacco Road Mountains.
And it doesn't hurt that as you're traveling from over here where Tim lives in Whitehall to go right by these incredible hot springs that are literally right beside the road.
Yeah.
And it's not like, it's not public. It's just like a little private place. We got down there and the water was really hot, like very hot water. It was beautiful. But I think that would be a wonderful idea, is to bring, have a Montana Wild conference up here and let everybody you can really unplug. That's the biggest thing. You can unplug. I mean, we haven't. We've stayed plugged in here and doing all this. But if I were to come back, I would unplug, and I think I would just spend a lot of time outside, seeing this Black Angus cattle, and we've seen wild turkeys, and we've seen Tim has a pig named Princess Buttercup that is like a dog, and this thing has followed me everywhere, snorting.
It was the woman. It was the woman. It's Amy's pig.
It's Amy's pig.
Yeah, I don't play the pig.
Yeah.
At least not now.
Yeah, but to go down by the Madison River and see those whitewater rapids and the mountains, is just rocky mountains that just go forever high, and then here's this beautiful river, and oh my goodness.
Right. So the purpose for this trip is really multiple aspects of bringing Steve Magua from Ask the Pastor conference out and Rick Welch of Burroughs of Berea out, was to really investigate the idea of a different kind of conference. And I guess we could just talk about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things that, we've done conferences for many decades, actually, within the Prediced world. And it's always a very refreshing time of coming in, flying in, meeting a bunch of people, having hours and hours and hours and hours of conversation and presentations and sessions. And then everybody at the end of the weekend gets in the plane and flies home.
Yep.
And they're great. They're educational. We have great material that we can use for years. So I offered to Steve to come out and take a look and investigate Southwest Montana for a different kind of preterist conference. And we were thought, and I'm just going to throw this idea out there. If you guys want to think about it, give us suggestions. Yes, no, maybe. What concerns you might have of having a conference during the week instead of a weekend, for one thing. That'd be a little bit different. That you could organize as sort of a part of a vacation trip, family vacation, or individual vacation, or even like RV vacation.
Camping vacation.
Camping vacation. You camp out here. It's,
Chicken cooping.
There's other options for accommodations, and having sessions in the evening in Montana, summertime evenings, which are just glorious. They're not overly hot. It's a little cool sometimes, but have sessions in the evening, but leave the days free for maybe 3 or 4 or possibly 5 days to explore the area, to spend time with friends in God's creation, to enjoy the beauty and the grandeur of that, and even create a spiritual place where we can like meet each other and Christ in us together in a very unique place. So that was that's what the investigation's been going on. The sort of, let's see what you think, Steve, because we've talked about it before, but I don't really feel like I'm in a position to say yes, let's do this without you making the decision. So the idea was to bring Steve, and then I value Rick's advice as well, and we really appreciate your work at the Burroughs of Berea over the last few years.
Thank you.
With a guy with a squeegee likes to listen while he works, so it's a perfect podcast.
We're great for truck drivers, window cleaners, and women who clean houses.
Yes,
that's about when people want to listen.
So that's what we've been talking about, is wide open, a preterist conference that's wide open. And we haven't talked about any kind of specific themes yet, but that's sort of the idea that we're coming at it from. And so maybe we just give an example of a conversation that we could start here about going beyond necessarily like time texts and fulfillment in a very brainy way, to bring it into flesh, to flesh it out, to incarnate it in our discussions, and maybe talk about history, maybe talk about the future, both directions, and let that sort of wide open concept, see what God does with an environment like that.
I mean, I can tell you, and those people who are part of Ask the Pastor know that one of the questions that keeps coming up almost every day. Today, I've already received it twice, right? And I've not even been doing much of the live videos. Is, okay, what does this then mean now? What is going to happen in the future? How are we supposed to live with all this? It's so wonderful to know all the time text. It's so wonderful to know that fulfillment took place in the past. But okay, what does it have to do with us? What's going to happen in 2030? What's going to happen 100 years? Now, so I think that's a very key conversation to begin to have, because the kingdom continues forever. And we are the stewards at this particular point, and we have to begin to really map out our path as we go.
Yeah, and something that I would like is, I like to see, we have a lot of different camps within preterism. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have people even with differing views to come together and to flesh some of these things out, to present your view. You probably already have, but present it, and then be open to discuss it, to talk about it, and not get in a fist fight, which would be me. But really,
backyard MMA, Robert Cruikshank, if you're there, please. You gotta get this thing going.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that it's important to be able to listen. I mean, look, you guys have spent, you've spent decades working on this. I've spent 3 years, right? So there's a lot of things that I've said that probably people could tie me up into little knots with, and that's fine. But it's a good place for where iron can sharpen iron. It's not sword fighting; it's iron sharpening iron, right? So it could be an opportunity for people of all different views coming together into a very beautiful place, very relaxing place.
Right.
And you had even said, one of the things about our conferences that we go to, we fill them up. Yeah, with so much, which is great. but maybe this time it could be a little bit more relaxing.
Right.
And then we could actually have some great discussions and some great thoughts. What does it mean? How now shall we then live?
Right.
That's the title of the Berean conference, and that's what they're doing. I mean, they're talking about what do we do now? So I like that idea.
Yeah. Well, I have 9 children, and you have 8 children, and you've got children and grandchildren.
Mhm.
So, it's almost to the point in time where we have to start thinking, can we start having a generational vision?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, and it's not necessarily our biological children, because we can have relationships with people we consider to be our children spiritually,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So how can we take this message of fulfillment and think through the implications and sort of get in a more three-dimensional application of fulfillment? Because there's a lot of new preterists out there, and I was one, and I know what the excitement was about the time text, right? Do you believe that the Bible says that
Yeah.
Jesus actually said that?
How did I
And we're
read it
excited.
75 times and miss it every time I read the Bible?
But after a while, and if you're a new preterist hearing this and you're like super on fire, I totally get it, and I encourage you. But there is only so far that will take you, and there will be sort of a letdown if you don't get beyond that shallow surface understanding of what fulfillment means.
Mhm.
Because you could really say it this way: man shall not live by proof text alone,
That's what the Bible says.
but by every word
Right.
that proceeds.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we were thinking in our discussions and our evaluations of what the possibilities are, is going that direction.
Right. Because the conversation has and is in the Bible larger than just the day of judgment
Right.
and the day of the establishment of the new heavens and new earth. There was a bigger purpose to it. And even in traditional theology, systematic theology, the end is just one of the modules that a Christian needs to master.
Right.
You have to talk about the doctrine of God, what the attributes of God. You have to talk about the Christology. But I think that sometimes as preterists, we get so laser focused on the end, and there is a place for it. But then at some point, it's like we lose track of all these other things that are really, really foundational and essential also.
Right. And it's necessary to say not to react against the eschatology, but bring the eschatology with everything else.
Right.
So it's not like we're like dissing the idea that we should, because our world needs this message.
Absolutely.
And we got to keep talking about time texts.
Mhm.
We got to keep talking about fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
We need to add more ideas and more discussion and more evaluation,
Right.
and see how God sovereignly is going to move in our culture, working through his people, even non-preterists, but
Mhm.
working through his people and all the different kingdom endeavors that they're doing.
Yeah, and I also know several preterists that have been without fellowship in their
For a long time.
for a long time and in their local areas, and that's another reason why I think yes, conferences are great for that. But something like this could be, we're your family.
Yeah.
We are your brothers and sisters, and you're out there alone. We don't want you to be alone. Come and meet with us for a few days. Let's relax together. Let's look at things together. Let's look at our this beautiful country together. Let's talk about our world together. Let's talk about the Bible together, and let's build a great relationship foundation across the board. Let's build that, and build a family and continue that. I think it's we are the children of God. We are those people. Let's gather together and do this.
Right. I believe that we are, when you talk about, even looking at church history. When you look at church history, about every 500 years since the establishment of the church, there has been a major reformation, revival, explosion kind of thing that happens that moves the church forward into what God is doing at that time. And I believe that we are at that time right now. And that's why we are seeing this big explosion of understanding about fulfillment. And now you hear people like you who have been doing 20 years or more, Don Preston and all of them. You didn't see it as big as it is right now, or as on fire as it is right now. But I think that we have to really capture that fire and direct it where we want it to go. Because if we don't, then it can so easily die out. And then we'll be waiting the next 500 years
Mhm.
before the next move,
Right.
right? So I think that's important.
And I would love that if, I would call them the patriarchs, people like Don Preston and David Curtis and Ed Stevens and Michael Sullivan and all of the guys that I've gotten to know
Mhm.
to come here too as well and see the fruits of their labor.
Right.
And you obviously being here with all of these guys, and
Right.
it would just, I would love it. It's like heaven on earth here, guys. It's
It is.
It really is,
It is.
except for the pigs.
Are you saying that pigs are not going to heaven?
That one isn't.
You know where that one's going. But it's amazing. You remember when we were down there at the Madison River
Yeah.
and we were looking at the beauty and we took some awesome pictures. And you just begin to think about passages like Romans 8, where it talks about, creation is groaning and waiting for the redemption of all creation and of the sons of God. And you're like, Paul is not talking about this. He's not talking about taking away Madison River or taking away all the beauty that you see in Montana and everywhere else in the world. I think this kind of place helps you to begin to put those scriptures in context and to see that he's talking about something totally different. It's covenantal issues that needed to be fixed, when Jesus was coming.
Yeah, and I think it would be important. I was talking with Amy and Catherine today about the possibility of having some sort of a children's curriculum with fulfillment in mind, put together maybe for homeschools or, for children that are teenagers, or just to have something. I know Carrie Thompson has already written one for homeschoolers, which would be great, but that's something else that we could bring up. Have when you come in, it's kind of like a fair, like a preterist fair. Like the idea is, if you wanted to get with Tim and learn about regenerative farming, which we have an episode that's going to be coming out pretty soon about that. That's a fascinating topic about how to grow. And then I know there Nancy Fauster down at Fauster Farms, she raises many cattle and many beef cattle and for the kingdom. She's teaching kingdom living. I mean, that's just, man. There's no better place to do it than here. I can just tell you that right now. It's just there's so much we could do, and so many other people that would come could bring ideas as well, right?
And I gotta inform you guys right now, because we are live on Facebook and YouTube. We have some people saying this is Nigel Taylor. He's watching from the bunker in Australia. In Australia, and then there's another guy called Joe Fisher. He's saying he's watching from the bunker in Boston. Man. So the bunker is everywhere.
So Nigel Taylor from so
he's in Adelaide.
All the jokes. So yeah, he's in Adelaide, but my favorite Aussie is Julian Chambers. He knows this. Nigel knows this, and he said that he's fine. He'll be a close second, but he's actually in a race with Luke McInnes, who's another one of my Aussie favorites. But I know Nigel, you should plan to come to Montana next year. That would be a lot of fun.
Truly.
Yeah, that would be great.
So yeah, and I think we'll have to talk about the subjects and themes of things. If you guys have suggestions, pour them on us, and
actually
the ideas.
Last night, Rick was really pushing me really hard, and I finally gave in. I didn't want to do it, but I started a Patreon.
Yes,
page.
you did. And if anybody knows me, there's other ministers out there that I have bugged, and I'm like, why aren't you doing this? Because it's a great way. Look, there's people that love your teaching. How many videos have you put out?
At least 1,200.
Okay. Oh, so you got 1,200 videos. How many times did you mention Patreon in those videos?
None.
Now, just so you, I told Zach Davis, I told Travis Drum, I've told Mike Sullivan, I've told these other guys, I'm like, look, there are people out here that are watching and listening and learning from you, and they enjoy it. They're coming to Ask the Pastor.
Yes.
And you're putting a lot of effort into this content. You can make better channels. You can get more content. You can do a lot with your channel. And asking for someone to become a patron of that, to offer their patronage, or to donate through Patreon, in my opinion, is just one way. Just one way that people can help. God blesses you, and that's, of course, everything we know comes from the Lord. But it's New Testament.
Right.
Ministers help ministers. Churches help ministries. That it's what they do is what we do. It's what we do as a part. Right. And Patreon is just a really cool way to do that. It links people up. They can support you monthly. They can do it as little or as much as they want. And I just think that you would get a lot of encouragement seeing how many people would support you.
Right. I mean, since last night, I did this probably 11 o'clock last night. We already have 2 members. And our first post, which is actually we asked what are some of the ideas that our those people who have been really supporting us and just being a part of Ask the Pastor, what would they like to see in the future? What do they think about the 2024 conference? And already we have quite some good feedback. So we are already hearing from you all, and we are listening, and we are definitely going to put everything that we hear into the planning of this next conference.
Yeah, and if you guys enjoy, look, we're not, I'm not begging for money. All we're saying is give them an opportunity to help the ministry. People want to help, and so get on there. And now I got to put my money where my mouth is, because I got to become a member of his Patreon. So I'll be sure to do that tonight since you got it set up. But yeah, guys, get on there and just make an effort to help this ministry along. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Now we have some comments here that Joe Fisher said he actually watched your teaching at the 2024 Ask the Pastor conference in St. Louis, and he says that Ezekiel 16 section teaching was off the chain. Awesome.
Oh yeah, my brain melted out of my head onto the floor.
Well, thanks, what? Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. But the blessing is mine. I've enjoyed studying God's word on that text for 10 years or more. It's just been like a magnet that keeps drawing me back.
Now, would you mind, Tim, if you don't mind, Rick, just because some people will hear about it and say, what's that about? Ezekiel 16. Some people have read Ezekiel 16. We know it's about the harlot that's about to be judged and so on and so forth. If you can just give kind of just a primer, just summary of what you taught over in St. Louis, I think it would be a blessing even now, yet again.
Right. Well, the message is called Clothed by God, a new paradigm for child rearing in the kingdom. And you can see it on the YouTube channel. So if this interests you, it's worth investigating. But the interesting thing about Ezekiel 16 is the prophet tells a story of Israel in very symbolic and allegorical terms. And it's a beautiful story because he keeps using different imagery that attaches to Israel being clothed with God's glory in terms of temple context. Clothing, a sandals of sealskin, and we know that sealskin was what the tabernacle tent was made out of. It talks about Israel being glorified and then becoming royalty, and the glories of the kingdom of David and the kingdom of Solomon. And it goes on to talk about at that point in verse 15 of Ezekiel 16, it's that's where the idolatry begins, and you have this big long story about the unfaithfulness of Israel. So, but many people skip over the beginning of Ezekiel 16, which begins to talk about Israel was a baby whose cord was not cut, who was not rubbed with salt, and yet was thrown into the field. And that part is sort of interesting because in the ancient Near East, there was a common practice of people abandoning their infants that they did not want, or the babies that were defective, or that they just couldn't provide for. They just threw them out in the field to be eaten by wild animals, to die, a terrible death, if you think about that infanticide process that was accepted in the ancient Near East. And God says, that's Israel. And then God passed by and had pity on you and clothed you, picked you, chose you, brought you. And my basic argument was that the story of Ezekiel 16 is parallel to both Deuteronomy 32, verses 10 and 11, which talks about God hovering over Israel, the waste and the darkness, and also Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, the forming of Adam.
So you say Deuteronomy 32, 10?
10 and 11.
Okay.
Yes. Which is, of course, language directly from Genesis chapter 1.
Right.
So without form and void and hover are both.
The Spirit was hovering over
the face of the waters.
Two words from Genesis 1, 2
Mhm.
are together in Deuteronomy 32 again, and it's the only place in the Pentateuch where those two words come back together.
Hmm.
That's the Song of Moses looks backward at the first generation of Israel, and
Yes.
it's rooted in the details of Genesis 1, 2. It's formed into the breath of life, which Ezekiel says God came to that infant and said, live,
Mhm.
live,
Hmm.
bringing life, covenant life,
Right.
relationship, adopting that child as his people, as his son, as his daughter.
Hmm.
And of course, that's the beginning of the whole story of the Old Testament. So the whole presentation is there with the details on YouTube. Clothed by God,
Right.
a new paradigm for child rearing in the kingdom.
Hmm.
And this is on Covenant Creation on YouTube.
Yes, that's
And also, it's part of the
Ask the
videos of Ask the Pastor. We actually have a playlist from the conference in order of how they were taught. So you can find it on his YouTube channel. You can find it on beyondcreationscience.com or on Ask the Pastor on YouTube.
Hmm. Fantastic.
those are exciting things.
Yes. Come on out to Montana Wild.
Nigel from Australia
Wide
says,
open.
I'd love to come to Montana for a conference like that.
Yes.
For all the fellowship.
Yeah.
So you are welcome
Yes.
to my cabin, Nigel. I've already
You can stay in the chicken coop, bro. You know? That's good stuff.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. Well, everybody, Rick is going to take off to go home
yep.
tomorrow morning. We've enjoyed you, Rick,
Yeah, it's been great.
immensely, even though it's 2 full days of pedal to metal.
Yeah, thank
Go,
you
go,
for
go. You've got some content now for Burroughs and Berea.
I do, yeah. I've got
experience here.
I've got the testimonies of Tim Martin and Steve Magua. I've also got a conversation that I had with their wives where they tell them all of their dirk secrets.
You gotta let us hear this before.
Can't do it. And we're gonna release it. We're gonna release it first.
We're in trouble.
I know. I'm in trouble. I know I'm in trouble.
No, actually, it was actually a very good episode about being women that have pastors for husbands, and also with some of the work that you've done and what that means, the implications of that, and then trying to raise a family simultaneously. You're teaching all of these things, but yet they're trying to live it with their family as they raise, the children. It's a great episode. And so, but Tim, thank you for bringing me out here. It's been a blessing to me. I do really miss my wife. I can't wait to get home and see her, but I know she'll come back with me next year, which would be great to be here. But it means a lot, and I'm glad I got to actually sit down and talk with you, Pastor Steve. When I saw you at your conference, you were running around a lot, trying to keep it together. Hopefully, if this conference here, it could be pretty relaxed, and we can actually fellowship, which would be really nice. So I'm ready to come back out here.
Yeah, great. Well, Steve will be here all week, so through Saturday we'll continue to do some interesting discussions. We have some ideas for more topics.
Right.
But after the investigation from the last couple of days, we figured it was time to put the word out or proposal out, and let's see if we get some suggestions and feedback about putting that together. And everybody, Steve is on Patreon now.
Patreon.
Yeah.
Actually, on the for those who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, we have it scrolling down at the bottom,
right,
where you can go. It's Ask the Pastor Magua. I think that's the tag. I still have to remember.
It'll be www.patreon.com/AskThePastorMagua.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you'll be able to find his page, and then you'll see. It's in development.
It is.
And I would suggest that you continue to do that if you could. It's good.
Absolutely.
So if anybody get mad at me. It's my fault. I bugged him the whole time I was here.
Yeah, he ragged on me until I did it.
Yeah, and Patreon needs to give me a kickback. I've been really helping these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a comment here from a friend of yours. I don't know if he's a friend of yours or he's an enemy of yours. I don't know.
We're going to find out quick.
I don't know this guy. I've never even heard of him. His name is Terry D. Swift. And he's talking about me like he knows me. He says Steve makes 1,200 videos every month. Seriously, Terry?
I saw a post that he put where he was like, he does 17-hour, videos. So it doesn't feel so bad. No, great guy. I got to meet Terry at the Arkansas Eschatology Conference. Really, man, I wish I could have spent more time with him, but as he knows,
All right.
we were all like, hey, everybody, and then gotta go.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll have more conversations shortly.
Yeah. Tell him what you guys want. Let's make it a really awesome time.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
All right.
Amen. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We will definitely be coming back out. Even when Rick leaves, we'll continue making the 1,200 videos a month. We'll probably make an 8-hour video tomorrow with Tim, and we'll discuss everything in beyond creation science. And we'll have more time really to discuss all those things. I've really been enjoying myself. Rick, it was good to meet you again in a more relaxed fashion where I could get to know you a little bit more and to get to know about what you believe. You have given some awesome testimonies that have really impacted me. I just want you to know that you've got my spirit stirred up.
Yeah, glory to God.
Truly, thank God for that. Tim, you and your family are just so wonderful, and this guy is definitely the best.
Yes, yes. Oh, and the food. Amy
has been doing
wow,
knocking it out of the park.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Very good stuff.
So truly, even as we come to, I we must mention it again. We are hoping and we are planning, and we want to hear your feedback. We are hoping that we can actually do a conference out here in Montana, here close to Whitehall. Well, Tim lives in close to Whitehall. It's close to how many miles from Butte?
It's about 27 miles from Butte. Butte's to the west, and it's about 57 miles. Bozeman's 57 miles to the east, so we're between Butte and Bozeman on the interstate I-90. So it's fairly centrally located, easy to get to. People can fly into Bozeman. It's probably the best airport to fly into. But we'll just work on those logistics and have more details later as we go and see how it comes together.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, thank you very much, and God bless you all.
God bless you.